We talked a little bit how I was part of this program at Wake Forest, and you direct the Virginia Tech Wake Forest University School of Biomedical Engineering and Sciences graduate program, as well as the Wake Forest School of Medicine Biomedical Engineering research experience for undergrads. And we're seeing that this summer you're advising two different projects in the summer research experience for undergrads program. And we were wondering if you could share a little bit more about what it's like to work in these or direct these programs, and also what it's like to work with the different undergraduate students who are not just at Wake Forest, but coming in from different universities, what that experience is like.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd say like this is where my passion really is. I really enjoy like, you know, being like director of these things, but also like working directly with the students and sort of training them. And I don't know, kind of giving back, because it was such an instrumental experience for me, like to do a summer internship and really figure out what I wanted to do with my life. So I really like to work with students, and whether that's them deciding like that they want to go to grad school, or maybe they decide they don't want to. Like I think it's equally valuable, regardless of the outcome, to figure that out, before you go and spend the next 5 years, of your life doing graduate research, to know that what you want to do. But yeah, I feel like I've learned a lot from the students that I've personally worked with, and then just more of like working with the whole cohort too, and seeing it grow, the program grow over time. So when I was a summer student, like back in 2007, there was 2 students, like including myself, that were in like biomedical engineering, and our program cohort this past year was 31 REU students. And so, I mean, we've grown exponentially. And with that growth has come like an enhancement of the diversity, and in so many ways, like, geographic diversity, like we recruit students and host them from all over the country. Race and ethnicity, the cohort is much more diverse than it used to be. And we, males and females participate. But also like sort of the types of programs that students come in from. We do have a sort of focus on hosting students, at least a subset of students from colleges that don't have a lot of STEM research opportunities, like community colleges or smaller liberal arts schools that don't have big PhD engineering programs. And I think that's been great, like in that it enhances the different perspectives and like different skill sets that students bring in. But it also is challenging to sort of meet students where they're at, because someone that comes in with like an engineering background that's done, had all basic engineering courses, versus someone from a smaller school that is more of a biology or health and exercise science background. Like the skill sets are very different, and it's not to say that like one's better than the other, but you need to like make sure that you sort of meet the students where they're at, and like that they are not thrown into something that they can't, that they don't really have the training for, and that you also capitalize on their strengths and stuff. And so I think that we've gotten better at that. We've implemented individual development plans and provided more training for the mentors on sort of how to, set expectations at the start of the summer and have those conversations with students. And I think the program as a whole has gotten better because of that, because we've sort of grown and matured and changed over time.
Do you have any tips for like, whether students who are in those programs or people that are, directing programs like this? I'm interested in one, like how you're building community, how you, some strategies that you have found that are useful for meeting students. I guess you just noted like the mentoring piece.
Yeah.
Just like from your experience.
Yeah. One of the things that we implemented for the first time last year was a boot camp at the beginning of the summer. And that I think was like a good change. Some of the feedback, I mean, we survey the students every year, and like we do change and adapt the program based off that feedback to try to make it better every year. But one of the things that like we kept hearing was, the students got a lot of like focal research training in like their project and their area, but they were interested to like learn more about like all the other projects, and like, some, like if they were doing imaging research, they wanted to like know a little bit more about the experimental biomechanics or computational biomechanics research.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're doing a boot camp now where it's like a half day, like for 4 days, where we give them like or experimental biomechanics module. Like they might do some tours and like get to talk with different researchers that are doing that. And then same for like computational biomechanics and imaging. We also have them rotate through the patient simulation lab at our medical center where they get to work with like the mannequins and stuff. And I think that that's been a good change in that it's not that anybody comes away like an expert in any of those things, but at least exposes them to what the different opportunities are. And then if their interest is sparked in a particular area, they at least sort of know who to go and talk to and connect with more over the course of the summer while they're here for 10 weeks to learn more, even if it's not the project that they're working on for their 10 weeks for their research experience.
Well, that's awesome because research, I feel like definitely as an undergrad, I was intimidated by and had no idea. You just don't know what you don't know. And so that exposure is so key to just get to experience all those different things and also do that together in a community where there's other people that are, also new and excited about it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. We do try to do quite a few social events and we partner a lot with other summer programs here at our institution. Like we did an ice cream social last year that was probably 100+ people because we partnered with like 4 or 5 different.
Lots of ice cream.
Lots of ice cream. Yeah. Yeah, and we do a baseball game every year. Like we just buy a bunch of tickets to the local baseball team in Winston-Salem, and we do usually do that with the other summer programs too. And people could bring their families, and their significant others and stuff. And so it's fun just to sort of like socialize outside of the work setting.
That's so funny because I remember all of these. And it's funny the things that you end up remembering. Like I remember the community. I remember the baseball game. I think I still have this like random token that had just like a dumb joke on it that I got with the beer from the baseball game, which I don't know why. I just like to keep some random things that remind me. And awesome. Like it's funny to go back in the photos of that and because it was undergraduate students from all over too, it like made it so special that like we all lived in the same housing area and then we would all kind of go into different areas for our research, but then we were learning from each other and all had different interests in where we wanted to go next, whether that was grad school or industry or medical school. And I've seen so many of people that were in that cohort at conferences or just randomly visiting and knowing that we're in the same town and seeing each other again. So it's like those connections. So I remember the baseball game. I remember this food truck that would come and we would get peanut butter and jelly burgers from the there was a lot of good food trucks in Winston-Salem that would come to Wake Forest.
Yeah, there's
good advertising right there.
Yeah. There's one now that does lobster rolls outside of our
Wow. Might need to come back for a graduate student REU.
Lobster rolls out of a truck.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's really, really good advice. I'm also curious about the training for mentors, and I'm curious what that kind of looks like. I think it's one thing for us to have these experiences and learn from them and implementing feedback, but then teaching other people then how to be a good mentor. You're like mentoring the mentors on that. What does that sort of look like? What kind of training do they have? And what would you say is like the biggest piece of advice that you'd try to share with mentors?
Yeah, so the training that we've implemented last year was taught by an educator at the Winston-Salem State University, which is an HBCU in town. And so it was focused on culturally inclusive mentoring. And so we talked about sort of different backgrounds, these students come in with and, how their upbringing and stuff, like, may be different from one to the other and like having conversations with students about those things. A lot of it's kind of centered around like setting expectations and just sort of having open conversations up front and not assuming, that someone knows something or, because a student that's done research before, like, has some experience with the way things work, but like someone that's new at it and, doesn't have a lot of that exposure to that at their institution, it's tough
Yeah.
to know what they know, what they know and what they don't know. And so it was more focused on like culturally inclusive mentoring. And I think we'll probably do another one. Like we met with our advisory board earlier this week and talked about like doing another training like that, and also doing one for the graduate students that like mentor the undergraduate students. And so I think we'll implement something like that this year where we'll train the faculty mentors, but the graduate students that, like Melissa, you probably worked with some grad students too, like when you were here, but the grad students kind of mentor the undergrads a lot on the day-to-day basis, and so we want to make sure that they're trained too.
Yeah, that's so helpful. I think even for us as graduate students, I don't know that we've ever had
formal mentoring,
training on how to be a mentor. So it seems like it's also a great experience for the graduate students to have something formal like that over the summer to learn how to be a mentor and work with undergraduate students. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to forget what it was like, to not know anything. Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I think that type of training is like really translatable skill too. Like, if you're going and you're getting a PhD, like you're probably going to be in a job where you're going to be managing and, kind of a team of people. Definitely if you go into academia, you're going to need to do that to manage a lab. But even in industry, like, if you have a higher level degree of PhD or a master's degree, like at some point you're probably going to be managing other people. And so it's good to pick up those skills because that's the kind of thing they don't always teach you in school.
Yeah.
Right.
They don't.
It's been a lot of like, oh, you learn from experience. And it's like, well, there actually are skills and things you can learn to make it better. And it doesn't necessarily just have to come from, just starting from a blank slate and learning from experience. There are things that you can learn. And I like your point that it can be translated to not just mentoring undergraduate students, but managing any people in your life and building those relationships. So,
yeah.